Hello and welcome back to Oz Football Talk. I'm Cody Ojeda, here to take you through the best and maybe the worst bits of Australian football. It's been another massive week. We've had Ange already linked with multiple roles since being sacked by Forest, Alex Bartolado possibly announcing himself as the best player to ever grace a football pitch, Devlin on an incredible run with Hearts, and the Australian Championship reached the halfway point of the group stage. But one of the biggest headlines this week though was this.
Parents with children playing soccer will have to pay 20% more for their registration, with Football Australia imposing a national fee hike.
Yes, it was reported this week that Football Australia have increased their rego prices by 20%, which the FA came out swinging against, saying the reporting was incorrect, and their prices had only risen by a few dollars across the board. Their press release on the matter went into detail around their price hike compared to other codes, as well as showed a timeline showing the price increases between 2020 and 2025, which is good. But, and I should preface this by saying I failed a lot of math exams in high school, sorry mum, but the reported price of 2026 for juniors is $18 and $42 for the seniors, increasing from $15 and $35 respectively. Like I said, I'm no mathlete, but that looks an awful lot like a 20% increase to me. Look, in the FA's defence, it's not a blanket 20% increase. Other forms of rego have increased by a lower figure. But these two rego forms are probably the ones that concern most participants. So while it's only a few dollars, it is very much 20%. But moving on. The A-League Women's returns this week with the new season kicking off tonight. And as it was with the men's, the hype around the upcoming season has been dull, if not completely non-existent, which is made more frustrating by the fact that it wasn't too long ago we had the Women's World Cup here, and we're hoping for a massive boom to be seen in the A-League Women's following this. So what's happened since? Well, the season following the World Cup saw crowds increase by almost 70%, showing the immediate interest was high. Last season though, the average crowd number dropped by roughly 600 people, which from the low 2000s is a decent amount. And now moving into this season, I can't see it increasing from that. I would love for it to, but I don't think it will happen. And I don't think that's anything to do with a lack of interest in women's football. The Matildas, while they may not have the same level of crowds as the immediate aftermath of the World Cup, are still very well supported. And the A-League Women's All-Star game got in excess of 40,000 people. And here is where I think the lines got blurred between supporting women's football and supporting Aussie women's football, because once the World Cup ended, the focus was on seeing those players again, specifically meaning the Matildas.
Like, where do we watch the football between the World Cups? Like, where are they all? Like, obviously I'm talking about the Matildas, like the Matildas team.
That's probably where things differed for a lot of people that got into football during the World Cup here. They built an emotional connection with the players they saw, and they looked to continue that on. And that's completely fair. The A-League Women's got its sugar hit from Courtney Vine deciding to stay another season, and Tameka Yallop returning. But when fans are getting invested in your Kyra Cooney Crosses, your Charlie Grants, your Ellie Carpenters, they're naturally going to follow the journeys and the clubs or leagues they play in instead. It's telling that the club that was the biggest beneficiary of increased support in Australia following the tournament was Arsenal. The reality is, for all the talk around wanting to see a flow-on effect in the A-League Women's after the World Cup, there was little to no presence of the league at these games. No one from clubs trying to tap into stadiums full of potential new fans. I can't speak for Adelaide, Perth or anywhere in New Zealand, but the games I went to, there was nothing. I understand too there can be limitations to what you can do, but surely something as simple as walking around in your club colours with a flyer, potentially with a discount code. Just something to say to people, hey, we exist, come check us out. And on the APL side of things, obviously it's harder to attract a crowd now when the likes of Kerr, Ford and Rasso aren't in the league anymore. And they rightly switched the focus of the league to portray it as where you can see the next generation of Matildas, which is good. But to do that, you need to actually show who the next generation of Matildas are, build the storylines around them, and shove them in the face of people that may not otherwise see them. The socials first route is flawed because you're more than likely only going to reach people who already have a passing interest. But in the lead up to the A-League Women's season, we've seen this series on their Instagram.
They would retake top spot on the table. Here's Dobson, first involvement, Van Egmond, and it's a goal made in Newcastle for Melbourne City.
Look, I know when you put Sam Kerr or almost any Matilda on a video, it's an easy way to get views and clicks, but it's not going to put bums on seats in this situation. Kerr hasn't been in the league since 2020. You'd be better off showing 20 young Matildas doing something cool, because while it may not get the same views, the people it does reach are more likely to go, wow, that looks cool, I might try to watch her. And if you want to go down the path of being the Matildas next gen in a post-Women's World Cup world, and here it's important to remember we have an Asian Cup we might be able to take advantage of too, you need to show people what they're actually going to see. And there's a conversation here how the facilities, set up, part-time nature of the competition, and so many more structural issues around the league don't help its situation. But that's a story for another episode, and it will be a story on another episode. And now, adventures from the gantry.
From Rose, and he shoots, and it's in. Liam Rose, that is a sensational strike.
Welcome to Adventures from the Gantry, where you'll get a bit of an insight into a shift as a commentator. Today, I'm at Campbelltown with the Collective AU for Macarthur Mondays as Macarthur FC host Adelaide United. Here is where the magic happens. Sylvie there on the tools. Shout out Sylvie, man, lives and breathes this stuff. Also on shift with Jude, who came straight to Campbelltown directly from Perth. He's a better man than me. I'd be asleep. Kicking off with a little intro, Sylvie was leading it all today before we got stuck into the action. Now the game itself ebbed and flowed. It was a bit dull at times, but we did get this banger.
Good touch from Rose, and he shoots, and it's in. Liam Rose, that is a sensational strike, and Macarthur have drawn first blood here. 11 minutes played.
Well, in a league where you've got teams intriguingly playing deep into the box, trying to go to the 6 yard, create something right there in the thick of it, you can tell what the direction's been from Milos Stajovski for this season. Is just have a ping whenever you feel like it.
That is a really, really nice finish. A bit of a tidy finish, actually, considering the distance from how far out he was.
Otherwise, Adelaide had the better of the first half, but Macarthur looked inspired in the second. And maybe this is why.
I feel bad for whoever's got to warm up on our right-hand side, because there is 5 mini-Roos games going on, and what seems to be a crossbar challenge as well. And also some form of drill going on right in the centre. Adelaide, their subs have 2 maybe 10 by 10 metre pockets near the halfway line that they can warm up in, while Macarthur have taken up an entire half for about 5 people. Eventually Macarthur did get on top and come away with a 2-1 win.
It's a delivery, and there's more Macarthur, and it was the first save, but it's that man G who follows in to slam it home from point-blank range.
I don't know what I like more, the fact that he's got it on the score sheet or the fact that he did the Ronaldo celebration in front of the away bay. That's an interesting choice, but one that maybe a bit of showmanship from him too. It's something we like to see from our import players. Following the match, we had a mini post-match show where we give the radio broadcast 3-2-1 votes. I only had one man in mind for this. Look, I've spoken about it enough today, so I think it'd be a bit weird if I didn't put him down for a 3 personally at least. But Philip Curto was fantastic. Following all that, we got the chance to catch A-League debutant Zane Hellway pitchside for some post-match thoughts. That was all for today, but be sure to keep an eye on the Collective for all future A-League's broadcasts. The main topic for this episode is about Canberra. More specifically, the Capital Football NPL, because Gungahlin United, one of the ACT's biggest clubs, have folded after the club's debts reached $550,000 and leaves over 2,000 players without a club in 2026. This is a massive blow to the region and of course impacts the 2026 season, but Capital Football have already been in the news this year for decisions made in this area. So today, let's talk about the Capital Football League's restructure, how it adversely affects certain clubs, and what impact the Gungahlin situation has on everything moving forward. And this starts in 2024 when Capital Football began an internal review into its league competitions, the final report of which was published in May, and in it were a series of decisions that were questionable to say the least, including the salary cap of $150 per match, which could affect their ability to attract high quality players, and the removal of their second tier competition in order to expand the top flight. But the decision that got the most blowback was the call to eliminate Riverina clubs from the competitions altogether, stating in their report that due to the expansion of the NPL and the removal of the Capital Premier League, it wasn't feasible to have them included, and that at the Premier League and community level, clubs tended to forfeit games they needed to travel, raising concerns about competition integrity. Now, there were 2 clubs mainly affected by this, Wagga City Wanderers and Ugali Soccer Club. Wagga was founded in 2014 to provide a representative pathway for players in the city and have competed in the New South Wales system before moving to Canberra to play in the Capital Football League in 2019. Ugali, however, is a historic club founded in 1954, making it one of the oldest migrant-founded clubs in Australia. They've played in Victoria, Wagga Wagga and ACT throughout its history, returning to the state's competition a few years ago, and recently won promotion to the NPL. And if you're left asking why any of this matters, listen to this.
When you look at all the top-level NPL state leagues, You will not find another club so under-resourced in terms of population and the length it has to travel to play its games. Despite those poor odds, Ugali is punching above its weight. But it's a shame the head honchos in Canberra want them gone. Because Ugali is a prime example and almost the only example of a regional club competing at the highest level in a state league competition in Australia.
Yes, Ugali are currently the only NPL side in the country playing out of a regional town, and that there is why I think this is a significant decision. One thing that football in Australia does terribly is tap into remote communities. I understand the FA have tried various ways of rectifying this, but if there's very little clubs that can service these areas and provide a legitimate environment to develop, and the one that does gets chalked off a state's top flight for no other reason than internal politics, what does that say to anyone involved in country football, whether that be players or other ambitious clubs, that they're going to be left behind because the people in major cities don't view you as worth their time? The most baffling part probably is that the internal report from Capital Football does talk about wanting to, in their own words, provide a structure to foster best v best football, which is a contradiction called out by one of their own in Frank Carcia.
For me, I look at Riverina, that area, I look at Wagga in that area, and I think that's 100-odd players that we no longer have in our competition. And, you know, if we're talking about growth, they're not going to be replaced by local players. Or we've got existing players, they'll be just taking their spot. It's not going to be another new 100 players coming in. You know, it's over time, but we would have had that anyway. We talk about things like travel and things like that. You know, we talk about best of the best, and we talk about players that want to achieve elite competitions. And, you know, if you're not prepared to travel to be an elite competition, are you really fair income about being an elite competition?
Frank's hit the nail on the head. You can't talk about wanting a best v best culture and then remove an entire region of players from your competition structure, because those players will simply be replaced, at least in this scenario, by those from the lower competitions. And the aspect on travel, it was even acknowledged in the Capital Football report that elite players should understand the need to travel for games, but they're now ensuring the need for it's erased. Now, this decision was made some months ago, but it's all come to a head again now, and we can bring this story back to its original starting point, Gungahlin, who have had their license revoked, and the response from Capital Football after already confirming a 10-team competition for 2026, decided to increase this to 11, meaning 2 further teams from the second tier will be in the NPL next season. Notwithstanding that this blows the best v best argument out of the water, they're also leaving themselves unnecessarily with a bye in the competition. Ugali have put their hand up on numerous occasions since this occurred to come in as a 12th team, saying they're ready and prepared to. But this says enough about football in the ACT currently, that they have a famous club in the area, Gungahlin, aren't small by any means, that have folded after years of financial issues, but choose to remove a club that was operating well and allowed you to tap into a different set of players because some clubs didn't like the drive. That is simply not good enough. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, it helps me out a great deal. And be sure to drop in the comments what you'd like to see me do moving forward as well. I'm Cody Ojeda, this is Oz Football Talk. Make sure you're tuning in next week on Thursdays moving forward. I'll see you very soon.